Hello, everybody. We are
Hey,
back in action on this very cold Monday evening in Nebraska.
yes,
I feel like,
it like got cold quick, I think, but
yeah, like it was nice this weekend. Like, I knew it was supposed to be like in the 50s, and I think it only got to like the 40s. But today, I was like, I think it's supposed to be colder today. I'll wear my heavy coat, and I'm glad I did because that wind was brutal.
yes. And I think tomorrow is supposed to be colder. So
Yes. Yeah. It is February. It is Nebraska. We are lucky we do not have a lot of the S word on the ground. I will take that.
I agree. Knock on someone.
Right. Right. Well, we are back after a couple weeks. And our last episode, if you guys tuned in, hopefully you did. We talked about like setting intentions for the new year. And we're just gonna do just a brief check-in on that a little bit. I know for me, I guess I talked about like finding like the peace in my journey and like the joy in my journey and really just kind of figure out um what would work for me, right? And I feel like this last kind of couple weeks, I've really like toned or like honed in, I guess maybe honed in on that, not toned in, that sounds weird, but honed in on that. I feel like I've done that because I feel like I have a lot of things going on, personally, professionally, all is well in my world, but like, you just feel like you get pulled in all these different directions, right? Um, and for me being the oldest of my family, oldest child, oldest grandchild, um, and I feel like it's up to me to save the family. I feel like I call it that lately. Um, and I've really had to go back to that intention of like, all right, find yourself in your journey and like remember like you got to take care of yourself too, right? Um, and like this evening, right, we had a little drama in the family, like, and it's just like my phone was ringing. It's like, all right, that's called Joey, that's called Joey. And I'm like, no, we can't, you know. I mean, I picked up, I helped, and I calmed things down a little bit, but it's tough, right? So just taking that time for yourself and putting yourself in whatever journey you want to go on, right? And making sure you're taking care of yourself. So that's my check-in for my intention, right? Is I'm present, right? And I know that things may come up that aren't planned, right? But we gotta work through it. So yeah.
that's a good one.
How about you? How is your last couple weeks been? Anything changed that you feel like from what we last did our check-in?
I think it has changed, honestly. Because I think my intentions was just kind of finding the balance. And I think r more recently, like I've been just trying to be more mindful of like, this is my job title, and like I don't boss people around. I'm not a supervisor. So lately my thought process kind of has been like, and it's helpful because I tell this to my patients both at my full-time job and part-time job, is like, what do you have control over? What can you control? And so that has helped me balance out pretty well regarding like, this is my job, this is what I do. I don't have control over other people and how they react and what I'm not being left out, like nothing, like you're just fine, Caitlin. Um, so that has helped me to really just focus on my work and not worry about other things outside of just my job duties. Um, Plus a good saying that I just kind of keep in my mind is like, it's not my circus, not my monkey, so I don't need to worry about it.
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
it is not my job to make sure X, Y, and Z is being done. My job is just to get my stuff done, and that's it. That's it. And
Right.
then go home.
Right. I think of like the phrase like control the controllables, right? what you can control, right, is kind of what we need to kind of focus on, right? We
Yes.
know we know what's in our job description. We know what we were hired for, right? We know what our role is with our company or agency. And sometimes we do get asked to do things outside of our role, right? And depending on, like for me, depending on what I have going on, if I have somebody like outside of my immediate department, sometimes will reach out to me and say, "Hey, like, do you mind like helping us out with this?" I'll check my schedule, and if I have the time in my calendar and like the energy for it too. Like I want to make sure
Mhm.
whatever activity, whatever I'm doing, I have my full energy for. I'll do it, right? I have a hard time saying no. But I have said no lately on some things like, oh, I can't fit that in my schedule right now. And I sometimes I feel bad for doing that. But again, you have to be able to focus on yourself too. And yeah, I like that phrase too, controlling the controllables of like making sure you know what you can handle and what you feel like you can't handle, for sure.
Yes. Yes. So it's been helping the past couple of days. So we'll
Good.
see. Hopefully I could keep on trucking along.
You can do it, right?
Yeah.
Well, today, well, I guess tonight, we're recording this in the evening time since we, are just busy professionals. We wanted to kind of talk about dating apps. And I know we've talked a little bit about it in discussion when we have done the podcast before, especially, last season, I guess we can call it. Uh, so give me your thoughts on dating apps, and do you have experience maybe with any, and if so, maybe which ones?
Well, first off, when I Googled this, an AI overview, this is what it
Oh,
says.
of
Because I
course.
asked how many online dating apps there were.
Gosh, 20.
As of October 2024, there were over 1,500 dating apps and websites operating worldwide.
Oh my God, 1,000? I think I know like maybe five.
It
Where are
is
these thousands at?
so some factors that influence online dating. I kind of love this new AI stuff, to be honest. I know I hate it, but I love it. So some factors that influence online dating is age. Online dating is more common among younger adults, which that's not true. I get that. Um, Gender, like Bumble makes women initiate conversation. Purpose, some apps are considered better for serious relationships, while others are considered better for casual dating. Some other trends in online dating in 2023, over 17% of the US population used online dating services.
Right.
In 2024, 60% of couples reported meeting their spouse online.
Yeah, I mean they're super popular for sure. But wow, 1,000. I guess that says worldwide because obviously some of them probably aren't available to us in the US, I'm assuming maybe. But that's
Yeah,
nuts.
that is crazy. Yeah, but what's kind of funny, so like, gosh, so my husband and I have been together for it'll be 11 years in March.
Crazy.
And we actually met on Plenty of Fish,
Okay, so I've
um,
heard of that one.
which is online plus it's an app. So as well, you could just download the app. So we met on that, but what was funny is just our connections. Like there was plenty of time that we probably ran into each other like at Northeast Community College, but never interacted until after the fact.
Hmm.
So when I did all that, like dating online, it was mainly just Plenty of Fish that I was aware of. Um, After my husband and I started dating, that's when like I think Tinder came out during that time. Because some of my friends like we um so Jacob, who was on here
Yes,
months ago at this
right.
point, kind of nuts.
Say last
Um,
season.
yes. He we wanted to just see because our other friend was there just to see our friend, would do on um what's the one for individuals that are gay. It's
Grinder.
not Grinder. To see how he would do on Grinder. So we made like a profile and like I just remember like Jacob like getting annoyed of how quick he would get response back comparatively. Um so and we use my phone for that. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I was never a part of like the swiping right, swiping left. Um, However, like I do remember Plenty of Fish at that time. Um, it's probably similar to how things are now, where you would get the people that just want to hook up and the people that do want to take it seriously. And it's hard to weed through that unless, like, when I started dating Jeremy, like before that, it was mainly like I had to tell them my intentions. So then they could decide if they wanted to stick around or not. But that was helpful was just being upfront, like this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for this. And that helped weed out a lot of the different guys at that time.
Right. Yeah, I feel like well obviously our dating experiences are going to be different, right?
Right.
I've been on a couple different ones and I feel like I'm just not a very patient person because I feel like sometimes I want to like go on one and like have immediate likes and like find somebody and like get the connection going, right? But obviously we need to know that obviously you need to be patient, like things just don't happen overnight, whatever. So I've done I would say like three or four of them. So from my experience, like on Grindr, I feel like that's mainly like casual dating, like hookup culture, right? I mean, I haven't really heard of somebody like, oh, I found my spouse on Grindr. Like for me, that's like you go on there and immediately they're like, oh, like I'm 5 miles away, like let's hook up. And it's like, okay, like, for me, like I'm not into that anymore at my age. Like I know I'm super young still, right? But I'm not at that point in my life anymore. Like maybe if I was in college still, like cool, right? And so that app is not really for me anymore, right? Because I feel like it's just not where I want to be at. Um, I have been part of the swipe left, swipe right, right, Tinder. And I've met a couple people on there too. And it's been fine, right? I've gone on a couple dates with people on there. Um, and I feel like that can kind of be a little bit of the casual dating too, depending on the profiles you see. Most people will put in there like short term, long term, you can kind of have the preferences, right? Whereas Grindr, I feel like doesn't have that. Mainly, it's just people wanting to hook up. So you kind of have to just kind of understand like what you want and what do you want to see in somebody. But mainly like where do you see yourself going? Do you want a relationship? Do you want to just have a casual relationship? What do you kind of prefer? I've paid to have like Match.com before. And probably because of my location, right? I'm in a very small town, so you have to like really put your location preferences out there. Um, and I feel like it's just gotten to be super pricey, right? And I'm like, I'm not at the point of also wanting to like pay for love, like I guess is what we gonna call it. So I stopped that and really didn't have much luck. So I'm kind of just still on Tinder. Like I said, you meet a couple people, you talk here and there and kind of see how it is, but it is what it is. So I think it can definitely work for people. Like I have numerous friends that I've met on Tinder and I've met on Plenty of Fish. And like Bumble, I've heard of that one too, like you mentioned. So I've heard of people definitely meeting their life partners and it working out. So hopefully it'll work out for me in the future, right? But it's very interesting, right? So what are your thoughts on um on like the preferences of that? Like, do you feel like people use the apps like wrongly at all, or do you feel like people like, well, I guess we can say have an intention when they go on the app?
I mean, you've have you ever heard of the Tinder swindler?
No.
So
Educate
there's like a documentary. I don't think it's on Netflix. It's called The Tinder Swindler. And it's this guy that kind of goes all over the world using women, basically going on Tinder, and they do meet up. Like it's not like he doesn't ever like catfish in a sense, but it is. Realistically it is, but he does meet up with them and like a couple of times, and then it's like, oh, this is going on, you need to send me money type of thing. And so like he was able to swindle these women out of money, and he used their money to be able to afford his lifestyle because he was going after multiple women.
Wow.
And like, so what he would do from the documentary was that he would um use this woman's money, saying that he needs it for X, Y, and Z, use that money to take this woman on a private jet to these country clubs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's
Mm.
not, it was kind of crazy, but
Wow.
yeah, so like that would be using it very wrongly, of course. And like that was kind of elaborate because he would actually go see them, actually be with them, meet up with them and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, but however, I think especially if you the only way that I could see someone using it wrongly, like the dating websites, would be if they are not being truthful to the other people by saying like I want a serious relationship, but then their behavior is, I just want short term, I just want to hook up, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I think for the most part, people do have true intentions. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, like, I don't think they go on it to be malicious
Right.
majority of the time. I mean, like, that's probably 1% is the Tinder swindler type situation.
Right. Yeah, I do agree. I think that you run into a handful of people that definitely aren't honest, and maybe your intentions can change, throughout your experience, right? Or throughout the conversations you have with somebody, right? Like maybe you go into it looking for short term, but then you decide you want something long term, and maybe with that person and it works out, right? I always fear of like the catfishing, right? That's happened to me once actually. I never met them at all, but I just knew it was not a good situation. And even like their pictures now, like looking back on Tinder, were like definitely, I don't know if it was like AI like generated or if it truly was them. I don't know. But we ended up talking, and then he said he was stationed in the army, which fair. And that we needed to communicate over WhatsApp.
Oh, that right there kind of tells
And I
me.
was like, okay, that's fine because I have a friend that was a foreign exchange student in high school. And we'd communicated over WhatsApp before still. So I mean I was familiar with it. So I was like, oh, okay. And I was like thinking like this is weird, but like maybe just for like service purposes, like, whatever. And so we were talking, and then just like the grammar he was using and like the verbiage, right? I definitely knew it was someone from a different like culture, right? Someone, that was not from the States, like, and I'm like, again, that's fine with me too. But then it was I'm looking for like some gift cards. Like, could you send me some gift cards? And I'm just like, okay. And this was like the same day. It wasn't like multiple days of talking. It was like within like maybe a morning, right? And I was like, what the heck? And I was just like, no, no, like it's like actually I'm gonna have to just end this, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I told my like supervisor about you that I, like we were in love and all this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And luckily he didn't have like any of my info. I mean, I guess my phone number, which so far this was like a year ago, and so far I'm still here and nothing's happened. But I didn't share like where I lived or like anything because I do that with a lot of people. But it was just very weird, and I'm like, okay. And so then that kind of like scarred me a little bit from the apps, and so I took like a good like 6 month cleanse, we can say, of just like let's just take a break. Like you're really going into this like way too hard, right? You need to like slow it down and think about your intentions for yourself and on the apps, right? And so I really just like changed my whole profile on Tinder of like long-term relationship. This is what I want, because I'm not getting any younger, right? And it's worked, right? I've met a couple people, um, and we've talked, right? And it's been fine, right? But it is tough. You really have to just be super, super careful. So I definitely learned my lesson, and thank goodness I didn't get you know, too far deep in the conversation and like shared a lot more info. But I think just from watching the show Catfish, the reality show, we know that it can be true. And I think it's a crazy world out there.
Yes. Well, even like on TikTok, I follow this guy, he Catfish the Catfish.
Mm.
And so he often meets these catfish people, and oftentimes he finds out that they're from Nigeria, but he will meet them like on Instagram, which like I will get random once in a while like DMs on Instagram or like random on TikTok even. Um and I automatically know like these people aren't real. So sometimes I will like mess with them with like the responses, or sometimes I'm just like I'm just not, no, this isn't happening, and like just kind of put them in their place type of thing where like no, we're not even gonna deal with this. Um but on there, like, it's just kind of funny because, like, he'll just mess with them too and just kind of play dumb and all that other stuff. Um, there was also a story, I don't know if you've heard about this lady who thought she was dating Brad Pitt. Did you hear about that one?
I did see a little bit of it, and like there was pictures and everything. You
Yeah,
definitely can tell the pictures are fake.
yes. And they, I think, started ta talking like on Instagram too. So, yeah. So
Mm.
like that's where like people, I mean, I get it, like your brain wants it to happen, and so like you just have like your brain, like I don't know, your brain is just very complicated and can be like very like powerful, because if you want to believe something to be true, like your brain will be like, yep, it's true. So
Mm-hmm. Right. I think it is super interesting of how it all works, right? But I feel like also too, if someone only wants to communicate with you like on a certain app, right? Like Instagram. Like I mean I'll message people on my Instagram, like they're like my friends. Like we'll send like reels or we'll send different things like through Instagram, but we're never like solely talking on Instagram, right?
right.
Um or people that will like you're talking to like on a dating app like oh like add me on Snapchat. mm, okay, like people know where that can end up too, so like you really have to be mindful of how that's gonna go too, right? Again, because for me, like I'm not at that stage of my life anymore. Like I'll add you on Snapchat, but like if anything turns into something where that I don't want it to, like I'll shut it down and then it's like now what, right? And it sucks, right? So you really have to be mindful of how people, portray themselves and just really be careful, right? Because dating apps are meant to help people find their soulmates, right? Find their next, partner. But it also can be very dangerous. So just be very mindful and not give out too much info right away and just take it slow, right? Everything will happen for a reason, right? And it'll happen, when it's supposed to, when it's meant to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's for, the dating apps work for people like a coworker of mine. She met her husband on eHarmony too.
Mhm.
So I think it's just what your intentions are and if you need to stick with those intentions. Like, what do you want out of this? Kind of like with life. What do you want out of life? Do you want to travel? Do you want to do that? Do you want to do this? It's kind of like understanding yourself too before putting yourself out there because if you don't know what you want, how do you expect to meet someone to that will work for you, that will be a good match for you?
100%. I think again, it kind of goes back to like what you put in your bio, right? If you know like you want these types of things in your partner or you want your partner to be interested in a certain type of activity or like for me like I love to travel so that's something that's in my profile is like I love to travel, it's a passion of mine. Like I don't want somebody who like absolutely refuses to travel. Like if someone's like, oh, I only take like 3 trips a year, okay, well I take more if I can, but that's fine. But like I don't want somebody like my father, for example, like he's n never been on an airplane. He hardly ever travels out of our tiny town. Like he's a homebody, right? I don't want that in a partner. Like I am a homebody at times as well. Like I love to stay home and stay in, but I also love to go for like a small weekend trip. I mean, I'll go on a big vacation if I can, right? If I can afford it and have the time off, I'll do it. But I don't want somebody who just like stays at home all the time, right? You got to be upfront with that and share that, right? And I always say to my mom, I'm like, you guys are the complete opposite. Like, how the heck did it? And she said at the time, like he was open to traveling, and then it just somewhere shifted, and you know, but you got to be open with that. And I think that's a conversation to have regarding other things too, right? Like do you like to, are you a morning person? Are you a night person? Like there's lots of things, right? Because for me, I mean, I don't want somebody who like is a heavy drinker, right? Like that's something that I am very strong about. Like I'm not a huge drinker, right? We have a lot of history of alcoholism in my family, and it's just something that I just don't want, right? So that's gonna be something for me is I don't want somebody who is a heavy drinker. Like I do drink, right? I just don't drink often, right? I'm a very social drinker and I know my limits and whatnot, but I don't want somebody that's out all the time, right? And is a complete partier, right? That's not for me, right? That's some people's lifestyles and that's great, right? I have many friends that like to go out all the time and have fun. But for me, like I do a lot of staying in, right? And I'm perfectly content about like going to bed
Mhm.
between 8 and 9, getting up at a decent time in the morning, taking my time, right? And I mean that's my preference, right? It's it works, right? So and I know I might not find that in my person, right? I might have to budge a little bit, but again, like I have some strong priorities that I want to stick with, and I think that happens with everybody.
I agree. I agree. So I was just kind of looking.
Yeah.
Um, so the some popular dating apps. So we know we talked about Tinder, Bumble, eHarmony, and Match. We didn't talk about Hinge, but that's more like casual dating, isn't it?
I feel like Hinge, I feel like it is. It can be a little bit more serious. I feel like there's also one, it might be Hinge that you have to like get approved for. You have to like put your profile in and
Oh,
get like approved. No, that's Raya. Raya is another one. You have to like fill this profile and get approved. Um, I filled a profile out like 6 months ago and like I'm on like a waiting list. I'm like, what is this? Like, what did I sign up for? So I think that that is another one that I think is becoming super popular that I think is a good thing that I feel like maybe there's a waiting list at times maybe for it, but also it's just like I don't understand either. Um I was
yeah,
on Hinge before too, and I feel like it's pretty casual from the most part. There was a few people that I had common interests and stuff with, and we talked for a little bit, but it just never worked out. So I feel like a lot of them, I think all of them really can be casual. Um, but you can put it there like when you usually like sign up for an account, it will kind of ask you what you're looking for and you definitely can be vocal about your preferences too.
yeah. So here's some statistics about online dating that I found, and this is from cloudwards.net. Interesting. Anyways, so 3 in 10 adults in the US have used dating apps at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like 30% basically. The global online dating population is 349 million. That's crazy. Tinder is the preferred online dating app in the US and Europe, being the most downloaded app of its kind in 2023. In 2022, the online dating industry had a market size of 9.65 billion and it's expected to increase by 7.4% between 2023 and 2030.
Mm.
That's crazy. By 2030, the online dating industry's revenue is predicted to grow to 17,281 billion, with a
That's
7% difference. More men than women in the US report having used dating apps,
mm-hmm.
with a difference of 23% more people from the LGBT community, 51% than straight adults, 28% in the US report having used online dating platforms. What, like, do you want to talk more about that and the reason behind why more LGBTQ, that community would
Right. You
rather
know,
use?
right. I feel like honestly it has a lot to do with like where you live. For me, like in a small town, obviously I feel like it's probably easier to date, right? If you are a heterosexual, I feel like, you obviously have more options. I feel like, especially in a smaller town, right? I think if I lived in a bigger town, I feel like I wouldn't say it would be an issue. I feel like there would probably be similar. Um, but from being in a small town, I feel like it's kind of your only option if you want to find somebody, like you have to go on an app. I mean, I honestly don't think there's any other gay person in my small, tiny little community. And I definitely have my fair share of like judgment. Like even like going in the local gas station, there's like a bunch of old guys in there. Definitely know they're silently judging me, and I don't care, right? I don't care.
Mhm.
Like they don't make comments or anything, but I know like when I walk in, I walk by like and they look at me, I'm like, oh boy. I don't even care. Um, but you wouldn't get those like major stairs in like a bigger gas station in a bigger town, right? So you run into those issues.
Mhm.
I feel like there probably are some dating apps besides Grindr that are strictly probably for the gay community. I haven't really researched them a whole lot. Um, but like Grindr definitely works if you're into the hookup culture, right? And I'm just not at that point.
Hmm.
Um, and I know from the past I've run into um like straight men reaching out. I've had that happen to me before. And that really is a problem, I feel like. Not to me, like I'm like, okay, like clearly you're interested in dudes, right? Like you wouldn't be reaching out if you're not. But it's more of an issue to me of like you have a family, like some of this would have a family, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you know, it is what it is, right? You run into that, and I feel like sometimes in small towns too, right? Like in a way, it's a compliment to me. I don't know, maybe that's weird to say that you have people reaching out to you. But you really have to like understand, like, do you want to be a part of this, right? Like, do you want to get into something that maybe is not gonna work out, right? Like for me, I don't ever play into a straight person reaching out to me because I know like if I would catch feelings, like what's that gonna do for me? Like if they're straight, it's never gonna work out, right? Um, and so you have
Plus,
to
you don't want to be like a secret either, like
no,
hidden
no.
away.
Like I'm almost 32 years old. Like I don't want this. I don't want to be in a secret relationship. Like no, thank you. So you run into that, I feel like too. And I'm sure in bigger um there is probably a bigger issue, right? In bigger towns too. I'm sure that more there's probably more heterosexual males that reach out to in bigger towns, and they can probably get away with it more because it's a bigger town.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's something that I've run into before, and you really just gotta like take it as, you know, being careful, right? Because you don't want the people to find out, right? Like I'm super careful about even dating here too because I know like if someone sees a car here that's not from this town, like that could be a rumor, right? Like
Yeah.
I had a rental car for the last like little bit because I hit a deer and my car was in the shop. So I had a rental car and had Colorado plates, and I kept that sucker in the garage with the door closed because I'm like, I don't want any rumors getting started. There's a Colorado plate in my driveway, you know, and people like driving by see if they would see somebody because that's just how it is in a small town, right? Like people just want to be nosy. Um, and so it's almost like you are secretive, like, and so for me, like I just know I'm just a very private person when it comes to dating. So if I am ever in a relationship, like I probably will share, but like I'm gonna be super private about it as well at the same time. Um like I talked about this before, like on the podcast and maybe my coming out episode, maybe, but um, that I could just see myself honestly like dating somebody and then when we're ready to get married, like not really have an engagement, just go get married somewhere and be done, right? Like a destination wedding, but super private and intimate. Because that's just, you know, I don't care to have this big hoopla because obviously I'm not going to do it in my small town because that's just super unconventional, truly. Like it's just not a normal thing here, and I know I would get a lot of backlash. I just, you know, and
Hmm.
I don't want to do that to myself. And so I think it's just super common for that. So that's my take on it. I think like I don't have anything against it. I think like, you know, dating as a gay male to me is like almost the same as dating as a heterosexual. You're just looking for different things, but you're still looking for love. Like you're still looking for the same attachment. You're still looking for your person. It's just obviously to the same sex, right? Like
Right.
so
Correct me if I'm wrong, and just because I'm trying not to be arrogant or whatever the case may be, and
right.
and maybe others would probably have a different perspective, which is totally fine. I don't really care, but um, is it also because it's more of like a safe place compared to like trying to go to the bar? Because what if you don't know 100% if that person is gay or straight or whatever the case may be, like,
Mm.
and you can also do it from the comfort of your own home type of thing too.
Right. Yeah. So where I live, we have like I mean I my town is like 200 people maybe. We don't have a bar currently in our town. We have one, but it's currently like being like remodeled, so it's not open or anything. It's been closed for a while. So our next town over, like 5 minutes, has a bar that's open like Wednesday through Sunday, but it's only open like late, like Friday and Saturday. They have food and stuff. I've gone there before for supper and stuff. I've definitely gotten looks going in there before, like people know me, right? And definitely it's a weird vibe sometimes. But I've never like gone there for like a big dance or a big event because I feel like it's just not my vibe because sometimes when you go to like a dance at a bar, you're looking maybe you're looking for somebody, right? You're looking to have a good time. You're looking to find I'm not gonna find that there, right? Um so I think sometimes you have to be careful because I feel like you can get judged. And again, like I said, I feel like I'm like really truly the only like out gay person in even like in my surrounding communities too, from what I can know and like I've observed, right? So I'm super conscious. I would say I definitely play the safe card a lot of times. Like obviously my voice, right? I don't change my voice. Like I don't have like a super straight voice. Like I don't have anything where I can be super secretive. Like my voice is my voice. And so that definitely plays a role into it. Like I can't go into a place and have like a super deep voice. Like I can't do a deep voice, you know? Like
Yeah.
some I definitely have had some like friends that I've talked with that they have friends that definitely can pull it off like that. Um, I don't care. I'm not at that point. Like I am who I am. Love me, hate me, do what you want. I don't care. But when I go into certain environments and certain places, like I definitely like change my demeanor in a way. Like around my friends and family, I'm probably a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more bubbly than I probably am like at work, right? I feel like we're in a super like conservative community, so especially like at work, like when I work with the hospice patients and their families, like I definitely know like maybe when to have a little bit more energy and maybe when to like take a step back and just kind of go in there as, just go in there your empathetic self that you are, right? But don't go in there completely over the top maybe and I don't know. Like I'm not one of those that are like completely out there gay person that you definitely can see around some people, but I definitely like to be more bubbly around some people, right? My closest friends will definitely tell you that, but my coworkers and stuff will definitely tell you that I'm super probably reserved too. So again, yeah, I would say I definitely play it safe in some areas. Now if I would go to a bigger community and like where they have gay bars and stuff, like again, I probably would still play it safe there too. I did go to Chicago last year, around my birthday with some friends, some of my travel agent friends live in Chicago in the area, and then some of my other friends we kind of had met there, and they took me to a gay bar because I've never been to one, right? And I was super reserved there too, like super shy, super outgoing, probably a little uncomfortable, and they probably could tell. But you definitely saw a variety of people there, variety of outfits, variety of personalities, and it was
Mhm.
great to see because we don't see that here, right? Um, if I would live in Chicago and I would do that type of stuff, like it would take me a while to like be comfortable with it, and maybe I would ne I don't know how I would act, but I definitely played it safe there too. So I would say to your question, to answer that I do play it safe a lot of times, but also, I mean, I am who I am, and most people know who I am. I don't ever like get asked like any crazy questions or anything like that. Like, I never like I guess like told like a lot of my coworkers or my bosses or anything. I think most people probably know. I mean, I came out a long time ago. Like, I don't feel like I need to do it again and don't need to like disclose that. Like, we don't have to disclose it obviously at work, right, or anything like that. But I mean, if someone would ask me, I would say yes. Like, I'm not at that point where I would like hide it, but most people don't.
Yeah. But I feel like, especially in Nebraska, the Midwest altogether, I would presume, and I think I would react the same way if I was not straight. that it would feel safer to do dating apps than it would be to try to find someone the conventional way.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I think that that was always my intention. Like I knew like once I fully came out in my community that I probably would get judged at certain places maybe and knowing that I would have to look for my partner elsewhere. Like someone wasn't gonna come knocking on my door saying, "Hey, like I'm gay, I want to be your husband." Like, that's not gonna happen here. I'm gonna have to look for it elsewhere. And that's okay, right? Like I don't necessarily like want to stay here forever. And so
Mhm.
finding someone elsewhere where I'm okay moving to and they're okay with me moving to at some point, like in our relationship, I'm fine with that, right? But it is sometimes tough. I knew going into this, like once I fully knew who I was, who I wanted to be, who I wanted to be with, I knew I was gonna have to look elsewhere. Like I knew I wasn't going to be able to walk into a bar and say, "Ooh, I want to be with that dude." I mean, yeah, that dude could be attractive, but I know that dude has a wife at home. It's not gonna work. Like, I'm not gonna go up to them and say, "Hey, like, I want to take you to the bathroom and do this to you." Like, I'm not gonna do that, right?
Right.
And if they would ask me to do that, I would probably say no too because you got a wife at home, right? Like, that bothers me, and not saying like 2, 3 years ago, I might have barked up that tree, honestly, because I was younger, right? At this point now, like, and I don't know if it's the social worker or the therapist in me of like, there's something going on, right? If you are claiming to be heterosexual and you reach out to same sex, looking for something, casual sex, whatever, there's something going on, right? Like, why aren't you having sex at home? Like, I don't know. And so to me, like, it's really hard to do that. And I haven't had anybody reach out to me lately, but I have in the past. And again, like, it's crazy to me. And um yeah, so I knew going into it I was gonna have to look elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's valid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of,
It is, right? And like I said, if I lived in a like Chicago, for example, that we talked about that, like I probably could go out somewhere and find somebody like the conventional way, right? But
yeah.
here, no.
Even Omaha would be questionable. I
For
would think
sure.
Omaha would be
Oh, for
too.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's up to like your comfort level too. Like for me, I come off pretty outgoing to a lot of people, but I'm pretty shy as well. Like I was super, super shy when I was younger. And I still am quite a bit in most situations. So I think it also is to your comfort level. Even if I lived in a bigger city like Chicago, like I probably would honestly look at dating apps too, just to like feel a little bit more like comfortable and then knowing like, oh, you matched with somebody, whatever, we're gonna set up a date. Then you're like you kind of go in knowing like who you're gonna be meeting versus like I think of like speed dating.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I already have anxiety. Like that would give me so much anxiety because like what if you get set in front of somebody that you like don't find attractive? Like how are you going to have a conversation? Like, like all these things run through my head. Like I think I want to try it one time just to like see how my anxiety would do.
I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, see, like I think it would be too, but I
I'm
already
not going to
like
do it.
I'm already super you can come and you can be my wing woman. You
There
can
we go.
yeah. But like there's just so many different things out there. So I think to kind of like end this conversation, I really think that like dating apps are super helpful for a lot of reasons. I feel like we've kind of come to the conclusion that like a lot of the LGBTQ community utilizes those, because there's just not a lot of options for a lot of people in these areas. But it can work for a lot of people. It worked for you.
Yeah.
So it definitely can work. I think, be safe when you're out there on them, but also like, use it to how you see fit, and I hope it works out for everybody.
I agree. Yes. Yes. Just beware of those Tinder swindlers.
I cannot believe I've never heard of that. Ugh. Well, folks, stay tuned for our next episode coming soon in the next couple weeks. Um, we're just gonna keep plugging away, just educating you with all of our nonsense gossip. And like I said, like we've always ended these, if you have any topics you want us to discuss, throw them in the comments on our YouTube, send us a message, and we're happy to visit with you and share. So I hope you all have a great rest of this week and a good start to what's now February. And I
Crazy.
hope you have a great rest of the week.
Yes. Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.